Okay, I've updated a few things. Mostly I'm working on this. So you see the little white lines on the ScritchyScratchy on the floor there, and it will also write on the, the whatever rectangle colliders are in the scene. So once it collides, it basically just records every point of collision. Um, yeah, so those are actually just like a collection of tiny little points that have been recorded as the collision points. It also works with every point in the chain. So if like the whole tendril is like any point in the tendril that is connecting with the wall, it registers that collision. So yeah. I also changed a little bit about how the tendrils physics works. Just writing your name there because it's fun. And I do need to tweak a little bit more. I don't know why it clips out of distance. I have to check that. There's some setting, but now the tendrils are just because I wanted to make it so the points don't just like orbit around that target point forever and ever. I mean, we can bring back a little bit of unwieldiness, but I did want it to actually lock on to the point and kind of stay locked on if it's close enough. But now I've got this issue where the tendril will just like stretch out like forever, I think, which isn't really what I want. I want there to be a kind of maximum stretch amount. Yeah. Okay, so let me just show the few extra settings that I've got here on the... So by the way, these quad objects are still there, but it doesn't need to be rendered. It doesn't need to show the color. I just kind of use it to position it in place, but then this renderer can get turned off. It doesn't need it. I don't think it even needs the mesh filter because it's just using the transforms to set up the colliders in the compute shader. So, I mean, I think it needs the mesh filter because it needs to be a quad, but yeah, definitely doesn't need to render. So anyway, tendrils. I tidied this up a little bit. So there's a bunch of settings here. This is so you can actually like adjust where the anchor points are on the screen. I don't need to demonstrate that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but like if you slide this one along, for example, it'll like slide along, wherever you want to position the anchor point, you can like do that. There's also the offset for the Z, so that's kind of the depth. It won't make much of a difference because it'll always stay in the corner, but it can be adjusted. So it can actually be like pulled behind the clipping plane of the camera if we need to do that. And then the other normal settings that you're familiar with, like how many points in the chain, what's the radius of the tube, how many sides does the tube have, and then the physics settings that you might be familiar with by now as well. The spacing factor. I also added a stretch factor, so like how much it can stretch, and it'll try and bounce back to whatever the spacing times the radius, like that is actually where it needs to be and wants to be. So it will try and like push with force back into that position, but it can stretch. So I just added this so it can stretch a bit more. Okay, and then this is just the tip acceleration is to actually change how wiggly the tip is. So like right now, I sort of doubled how bouncy the tip is. And unfortunately, because there's still that bug where the tendrils will stretch like for infinity. So there's kind of like a curve along the whole tendril, like from the anchor point to the tip. There's like a section of the tendril that sort of considered to be the tip, and it sort of fades out like in a curve gradient across the tendril. And so whatever is considered like to be the tip, then you can sort of multiply so that it's more wiggly. But it's hard to see now because it just kind of extends all the way to the contact point like that. So it's hard to see, but let me try and just increase that. Like if I put it to 4, it might be like way too much. But like, see, now you can see all the points are actually, they've got a lot more force, like the force is just multiplied across the tip. I probably have to tweak that some more and actually like a lot of my code is very naive, and that's why, you know, things don't work correctly. But yeah, you can see the tip moves a lot quicker, but it's more about the force of the points. That is what that tip acceleration is controlling. The tip target speed controls how fast it is reaching the target. So if I make that like 200, it'll like, bam, it'll like go for the target really quickly, right? So that can get changed to be a lot more sluggish, or like, see, it's like, boom, going straight to the target. Tip acceleration, let's halve that again. So it's not quite so stretchy. Maybe it should be called tip elasticity or something. Right. So the speed here might be a bit too much right now. I'll just bring that back down again, but this can be adjusted. And then the damping. Okay, so that's just a couple of the new things in there. But yeah, really the thing I've mostly worked on is this, the like registering the contact points. So right now there's like a limit to how many points it can like add, because I don't want it to just keep adding points into infinity. It might, you know, be a bad idea. But where does that get set? Let me see. There's somewhere there's like maximum collision points. So it's quite high right now. And what happens is once it goes over that amount, it starts deleting the first points. So it deletes the oldest points and starts deleting them and just adds like new points instead. So you can keep drawing and drawing, but eventually once there's too many points, the collisions will start deleting the first collision points. And that's not really what I want. So the next thing that I want to work out is how to do a kind of culling of points. Like, for example, it doesn't need to record every single collision point. Like, if they are close enough together, they can, you know, they don't need to record a new point. So for one, so there should be a bit of control with where these points actually need to be recorded or when they need to be recorded. And then, they can also check if there are already points there. It doesn't actually need to add more points into the buffer. Because these aren't going to be, this isn't, this is obviously not the end goal. These points are really just to be used for spawning other things in the scene. And obviously I don't need like 100 points in just the same location, because once there's a point there, something will start happening. I don't need to add more points in the same area. So yeah, so I need some logic for culling points and eliminating points. So that's the next step that I'll work on. Before I even do the audio, I think, because right now I think if there's any kind of audio getting triggered, it'll be like, like it'll just be crazy. So yeah. But yeah, so this is progress. Yeah, all right. Cool. Bye.